So psychiatric coercion needs to be outlawed. Psychiatric coercion and force and confinement are all legal to use on law-abiding adults when that adult is supposedly a danger to their own self or others. If an adult is authentically a danger to others, then they have very likely or almost definitely broken a law, in which case they should be dealt with in the criminal justice system. If an adult is a danger to their own self, well, they should be allowed to be. So therefore, there is no justification for psychiatric coercion. There is no justification for psychiatric coercion. It is morally wrong through and through. And until psychiatric coercion is outlawed, then there will be continued injustices happening in society. Read the book Psychiatric Slavery by Thomas Szasz. Read his other book, Cruel Compassion, or Suicide Prohibition, The Shame of Medicine, or The Myth of Mental Illness, or Psychiatry, The Science of Lies. I'd recommend reading books that psychiatrist Thomas Szasz wrote. Thomas Szasz lays forth very eloquently and nearly completely why we should outlaw psychiatric coercion. According to Szasz, psychiatric coercion is medicalized terrorism. So, for example, if we medicalize something, we make it into a medical issue. So, for example, medicalizing homosexuality is to call homosexuality a mental disorder or a psychiatric disorder. You medicalize it. And it was. Homosexuality, until I believe sometime in the 70s, was an official mental disorder. It was medicalized to be a supposed medical disease, which of course is not. It's a set of behaviors. Same thing if we medicalize suicide. Well, suicide is a personal decision. I'm not encouraging suicide, but to medicalize it rather than to admit that people have reasons for wanting to engage in suicide, just to medicalize it and say there's something wrong with their brain is wrong, because it results in the use of things like psychiatric coercion, which helps to create movements like the psychiatric survivor movement. So to say that psychiatric coercion is medicalized terrorism is saying, when Thomas Szasz says that, he's basically saying you're taking terrorism and pretending that it's a medical treatment. So, for an example of psychiatric coercion would be to say, we're going to lock you up unless you take these drugs that could have side effects that result in death. Or we're going to take away your rights if you don't do what we say and adhere to our psychiatric recommended treatments, so-called treatments. Psychiatry is a pseudo-medical cult, and non-consensual psychiatry needs to be outlawed. Psychiatric coercion needs to be outlawed. And until it happens, we will continue to experience the unintended consequences of psychiatric coercion. And if we're okay with that as a society, then by all means maintain the status quo. But if you do not want to see the unintended consequences of psychiatric coercion, then we should probably outlaw psychiatric coercion. And again, I'd recommend you read the books Thomas Szasz wrote. He wrote about 35 books. Maybe go to your local library and pick out a few, check them out, buy some on Amazon. Some are available as ebooks. I think there's at least 3 that are available as audiobooks. Check those out. Tell your lawmakers we need to outlaw psychiatric coercion. Email them, write them, tweet them, call them. Until psychiatric coercion is outlawed, there will be continued injustices. There will be more and more psychiatric survivors created. Also, read the book Anatomy of an Epidemic by Robert Whitaker. Why have rates of disability for things like, for actual diseases like heart disease and strokes, why have all those gone down over the years? But why has the rate of psychiatric disability gone up? Well, it's because we have disease inflation within psychiatry. They keep creating more and more psychiatric disorders and psychiatric diseases as an excuse to sell psychiatric drugs to people. It's a losing battle. I might end it there. Thanks for watching. Again, my whole point here is that psychiatric coercion needs to be outlawed. So please subscribe, watch my other videos, visit my websites, and have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, or night, whenever and wherever you may be. Cheers.